Yes, guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream. And as always, we have got a packed show for you this afternoon. And unfortunately, yesterday, it was a humiliation for Chelsea at the hands of Leeds United, going down 3-0 in what was an absolutely pathetic and embarrassing performance. Outclassed in all departments of the pitch, outrun by Leeds. They covered 9 kilometres more than us. The basics, just inexcusable on Chelsea's behalf. I mean, we're very much Jekyll and Hyde these days at the start of this season, 3 games in, average against Everton, fantastic performance against Tottenham, and then utter shit show against Leeds. So I don't really know where that leaves us at the moment, but there's a lot to unpack. And yes, okay, it's with 3 games in, but there's losing football matches and there's losing football matches. And yesterday was completely unacceptable to lose in that fashion. Just the basics, work rate, desire, mentalities. It's the same problem again and again and again. We have got serious mentality issues in this team. As soon as the going gets tough, we down tools. The heads go down and we disappear, mate. We just do a Houdini. As soon as it gets tough, we don't fancy it anymore. And it's facts. We've seen it time and time again. And you've got players in the squad that, returning to the bench. Half the bench don't even want to be here. We've got Ziyech yesterday that comes on for 20 odd minutes and whatnot. And he's fucked off on a plane to Amsterdam to have talks with Ajax after the game because he wants to fuck off there. Like, what are we doing? What's going on here? And, getting to the goalkeeper, Mendy. I love Mendy, but it's getting harder and harder to defend his actions now. All right, we all make mistakes as players, as people, whatever, but that's inexcusable. And his form's had a big question mark over it for a bit of time now. And that's unacceptable to do that. You do not do that in a Premier League football match. You just get rid of this, what you're taught in the basics of football. Get rid of the football, in a dangerous area. Don't fuck about with it. He's not a Mendy. You're not a Allison or an Edison. You're not good with your feet. Your distribution's not great. Play to your strengths. Get rid of the ball. And I think we've got big problems. Midfield, for me, is a massive issue. Massive issue. I know Tuchel has said after the game that he's not sure about whether we need another midfield player. We'll obviously unpack that a bit more. But, it was just an utter shit show. And it's mad. You go from the highs of Spurs where we were really, really good. Obviously, we're disappointed to not get the 3 points, but the performance was really promising. And you then go to that. And I think it highlights again that at the moment, we're very much a cup side. On any given day, we can go toe to toe with the best there is and win. But the consistency of a 38-game season, week in, week out, we are just not there. But yeah, I've gone on long enough. I was up at Elland Road yesterday. It was terrible on the TV. It was terrible in the stadium. But George, what were your overriding thoughts, mate? We're only 3 games in, and I was saying afterwards that the only positive for us is the fact that the transfer window is still open, and we can potentially try and address some of these alarming issues.
Yeah, well, firstly, you summed it up really well yesterday after the game, and for anyone who hasn't listened to Chelsea Fan TV, it was a really good kind of 6 minutes evaluation analysis of the game. So make sure you go and watch that because it was spot on, mate. I had nothing to add to it. I thought you spoke a lot of sense and from the heart, which I think as Chelsea fans we're all very frustrated in the direction that the football club's going because we show, we were quite optimistic after quite a positive window so far, but like you said, the performances. Even the one we won against Everton, it was a pretty poor performance. Winning by a single goal from a penalty spot. It's not ideal. Yesterday, I was actually more angry than I was in the Spurs game because at least in the Spurs game we played well, but we were outdone by 2, decisions that. Well, he's actually come out and said that they were mistakes. So put that to bed. But the thing I'm just struggling with is, Tuchel said before the game that he expected it to be high intensity, he expected the high pressure, he expected it to be a competitive game where we needed to be physical. And from the kickoff, I completely agree with his statements. We lost the game in the first 20 minutes because we had 2 unbelievable opportunities to.
We started well though.
Yeah, Sterling with a great, literally about 30 seconds in, Sterling with a wonderful chance. He cuts inside, should score, at least hit the target. And football is a funny thing. If we score that, the game's totally different. Leeds' head start to drop. We've got the quality, we've got the psychological edge to then maybe take the game and start closing it before half time. That's just how football works. But we didn't, and we didn't take our chance in the first 20 minutes when we were dominant. But then after that, just from, they wanted it more, winning all the 50-50 challenges. Chelsea looked a bit rushed, out of ideas. I mean, every time Leeds got the ball in an attacking situation, they looked like they had a plan. They looked like they knew exactly where to run, what spaces to attack, where to play those balls. We just had, it was almost like even when we got the counter-attacks and had space, it was like there was no idea, no one really committing forward to create options, no one sure whether to shoot, or the amount of times, again, just delaying the final pass or delaying the final shot, not working the goalkeeper. It's just the same problems again and again and again. And it's, you can't win football matches if you can't score goals. But it wasn't just about goals yesterday. I mean, again, the Mendy comments, I get it. Every goalkeeper can make a mistake, and it's a terrible mistake to make. It's inexcusable. Shouldn't be making that mistake. Get that. I'm almost more angry looking back at it in the second goal, because I think at that point you have to, there's nothing tactical about it. There's nothing. It's just a personal error. You put it to bed. But I remember texting. Our private group, and I said, right, let's settle now. Get to halftime 1-0 and regroup. We cannot start capitulating and fall apart in these next 5 minutes. And what happens? They get a set piece, 2-0, game done. Just terrible. It's just like we blew up. Just like didn't want it. You could tell from the coverage stats, they obviously ran a lot more. Okay, you could maybe look at that and say, well, if another team has more of the ball, then of course they're going to do more running. But you could just see it. You could see it in the atmosphere. You could see it in the desire that they wanted it more. And Chelsea are. I completely agree, mate. I think we're a cup side. I just cannot. There's no consistency. I don't know what Chelsea are going to turn up now, and I haven't thought that for a long, long time about the Chelsea side. I've always thought we're solid at the bridge, shouldn't lose many games away from home. We've looked pretty solid. Now I go into every game thinking, where's the goals coming from, and are we going to get a result? And that is worrying.
Mate, it is worrying. But the other thing that's worrying as well is that this was the exact same players that played so well against Tottenham like 7 days ago. I don't understand in a space of 7 days what's changed. How are these exactly the same players? All right, Conor Gallagher's coming for Kante, but even if Kante happened to play yesterday, mate, he's not making any difference. If we play exactly how we play, but we have Kante, we're still losing that football match, and we're still outclassed in every single department. So the worrying thing for me is how every week are we so different? How can we go from Everton, where, let's be honest, we were poor but we won, to being so good against Tottenham, to being absolutely horrific against Leeds? Like, we've got Leicester next weekend. And as you said, mate, you've got no idea what sort of Chelsea's going to turn up. Is it going to be the Chelsea that turned up against Spurs? Or is it going to be a continuation of what turned up against Leeds? Like, you just don't know. And that's a big concern. But I think, mate, there's big problems. And, I don't want to, go back to it. But I think, obviously, winning the Champions League, fantastic for the club, fantastic for the fans, great achievement. But I think in the long term, this Champions League win is going to do more damage than good, in terms of the fact that it's massively changed people's perceptions on this squad and expectations, when in reality this squad is nowhere near as good as people think it is. And a Champions League win is kind of made people think that it's actually a lot better than it is, and it's not. There's massive problems in this squad. We've got in the starting lineup, when are we going to realize that playing 5 or 6 players out of their positions, or not in a profile that they're used to, is not going to be conducive to good performances? Reece James is not a right centre-back. Yes, Reece James can play very well at right centre-back in certain games, but you take Reece James out of into right centre-back, we've got no attacking outlet in right wing-back. Loftus-Cheek can fill in at right wing-back and do a solid job on a one-off game or a couple of games. Starting week in, week out, you can't do that. So you're playing Reece James out of position, Loftus-Cheek out of position. You're playing Conor Gallagher, who is not a pivot player. He's a number 8. You're playing him out of position. You're playing Mason Mount out of position, who's a midfield player, but he's playing on right wing. You're playing Sterling out of position. Sterling does not play through the middle. He's not that sort of profile. You're then playing, I don't know what Kai Havertz is, but he's not playing in his. I'm getting people telling me that Kai Havertz is not playing in his natural position. Kai Havertz's natural position is the bench right now. It's not good enough. Like, what is Kai Havertz? He's playing out of position. Sterling's out of position, for what he normally does. Mount's not a right winger. No, Mount is a midfield player that's playing in the attack because no one else can post any decent numbers. And, you've got 5 or 6 of your starting 11 starting out of their natural positions. What are we expecting performance-wise? Like, what do we expect? Why? I'm not surprised with that, why we're getting so many different things, each week, because players are playing out of their positions. I mean, this needs to stop happening. I mean, George, would you agree with that? Is it concerns you that we've got so many players playing out of their natural positions week in, week out?
Yeah, and you could see from Tuchel's facial expressions and the lack of substitutions, even when we're 3-0 down, to change the game. That I think he's out of ideas as well. I don't think he has a faith in a lot of the players. Interestingly, he did, and I think he will go with this in future. I think he's going to change it for Chilwell and James being the wing backs, with Cucurella possibly playing as an inside three with Silva and Koulibaly. I think that will probably be the five going forward, which is worth a go. But you're right, mate. I mean, I think as defensively set up as we are, and we know we're a defensive side, and we're not going to be City and expansive football and great touches and all on through balls and all the rest of it. I think there's got to be a responsibility from the front players to take the pressure off the defenders by scoring goals. And when we've got no goal threat up front at all, I mean, I honestly think now that those forwards go on the pitch and they just don't believe that they can get a goal. I mean, even it's even comical. I was watching the highlights last night, and even the ones that were offside that Gallagher and Sterling had when the whistle had gone, they still didn't finish it. They still missed it, and it's just like, it's embarrassing. It's like we're doomed to not score goals. And if you're going into a match not scoring goals, it doesn't matter how defensively good you are. And we weren't defensively good yesterday anyway. But we're just, look at City yesterday, 3-1 down to Newcastle. They still have a cutting edge to be able to create things and get things. Possibly could have won the game as well late on with Haaland's shot over the bar. Chelsea haven't got any of that. I mean, if we don't take the lead, we're bang in trouble. That stat that came out,
we're done.
We've never come from a 2-0 deficit at half time in the Premier League ever to win. I mean, that is, that's worrying at the best of times when we were scoring goals fluidly. And now, if we don't score first, I've got no confidence in this Chelsea team scoring goals.
I can't see us winning a match. If we go a goal down, mate, we're not going to win a game.
No, and I completely agree with your point you made on Chelsea Fan TV about Kai Havertz. I mean, I'm fed up with it, to be honest. I honestly, I don't know what he's doing. And I don't know what he offers. I don't know. You could have easily pointed him out to me, and I wouldn't have been able to recall what he did yesterday. And that's been a few games.
He played 90 minutes as well, which is even more baffling.
But I think that's more down to Tuchel not knowing what to do. You mentioned, Ziyech coming off the bench. I don't think he wanted to use him. But what other options do we have? Pulisic the same. He's kind of wants first team football. Probably doesn't want to be there. But again, what else have we got? I disagree with your point about Kante. I think Gallagher had a mess yesterday. I'm sorry. I think he's. I don't want to be too critical on the channel, but I have to stand by it. I think if Kante did play, I think it could have been different. I'm not saying we would have won, but I think there's levels, and Kante, we know on his day is unplayable, and you need that level of quality in there. And I think Gallagher just got, whether he just got, it was too much for him in that moment, or because the team wasn't playing well, he kind of got singled out. But you could see that he just wasn't being able to step up to the quality that was around him. He was chasing shadows for most of the game, and for me, it was a big difference. I credit to Tuchel for starting him. I think we as Chelsea fans, we all want to see it. We want to see him do well, and that remains. But when you're playing that sort of player in a Premier League game to start a game, you're going to have to take the fact that maybe we don't dominate and we lose games of football. So you can't have it both ways for me. And I think you've got to take one or the other as a fan. And for me, do you want instant success and play top level players, or do you want youth players, give them a chance, but then end up losing games? It's up to you. But
I think Jorginho, everyone was shit yesterday. My point on Gallagher was like, not more of the fact that he didn't play well. He didn't play that well, particularly in the first half. Midfield was completely overrun. He was guilty of giving the ball away a few times. He found it tough. But Jorginho, very experienced player alongside him, was equally as bad as well. Everyone was terrible. But my main point in what I'm saying about Gallagher is that, like, this is his first start for the club, and we've got people singling him out for a poor performance when everyone else was just as bad, or if not worse. But people are picking him out because it's an easy target. His first Premier League start, it's easy target. People have got kind of like agendas, just because they might not like a player, or where's that same energy that people are bringing for Conor Gallagher? Where's that for Kai Havertz? Where's that for Jorginho? Where's that for everyone that played shit yesterday? That's my point. We didn't lose because Conor Gallagher played badly. We lost because as a collective we were utter dog shit. So what I'm saying is that, yes, Gallagher didn't do well. This is this guy's first fucking start for Chelsea. I think we just need to what's happened to people where we're writing off players after one game, after he played 60 odd. Why are we writing players off after 60 minutes? The guy's 22 years of age.
Yeah.
Like he's played 60 minutes of football. I know it's emotional and people react and stuff, but like,
Yeah.
come on now. Look, the guy's played 60 minutes. Are we really at a stage now where if someone doesn't play well for 60 minutes in a football match, are they not good enough for Chelsea? They're not the required standards. It wasn't a good game, but he wasn't good enough. But on the other hand, we've got players that have been here that start week in, week out, been here for multiple years and continue to just disappear and get a pass, and they start every week. I mean, George, is that another issue for you as well, mate? The fact that there's certain players in the team that because of the lack of options, the lack of depth and whatnot, it doesn't matter how shit they are, they will always play every week. Kai Havertz, a main one. Mason Mount as well. Like I love Mason Mount. I'm not saying that he's shit, but what I'm saying is he knows that he's going to play every week, regardless of if he plays well or not. He knows he's starting most weeks. Havertz, Mount. I even think Raheem Sterling to a certain extent as well. He's coming, new signing, but if Sterling plays badly for like 4 or 5 games on the spin, he's not going to be benched, is he? Let's be perfectly honest. There are certain players that will always start and they won't be benched, and that breeds complacency in the side. You know, it's great now that we've got competition with Chilwell and Cucurella, but in those attacking positions, like half the guys don't want to be there, and the others that are on the pitch are doing nothing, but they know they're going to start every week, and that for me is a massive problem.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. There's no competition for place in the front line, and I think that's the biggest issue. Havertz knows that he can play shit and play, and you know where does the inner hunger and the inner motivation come from when you know when you're looking at your shoulder, there's no one that's going to realistically take your place. You don't necessarily need that. I mean, Haaland knows he's going to play every game for City if he's fit, but I think Chelsea fans, you know, I think we're more real than most. I think, you know, we're not as deluded as perhaps, you know, United fans or Arsenal fans, but I think we do need a bit of reality check of where we are. And I think you're right. You know, the Champions League was a fantastic achievement, but that was a couple of years ago now. That was on the bounce of a new manager coming in and nothing else to play for because we were out of the league and we had a fortuitous draw and blah, blah, blah. And it goes on and on and on. But, you know, I think we need to realise where we are. We're a fighting top 4 team, right? So we're not going to compete for the league at this rate. We're not even going to close the gap, and we're going to struggle for the top 4 at this current rate. So what do you do? And I agree that people probably reacted a bit badly, me included, and you know, easy targets, scapegoats. You know, don't play the youth because that's what happens. You know, that's an easy target. But what Chelsea fans need to realise is if you want to give these players a chance and we want to play Loftus-Cheek and we want to play Gallagher and we want to play Brozier and all the rest of it, we've got to expect to lower our expectations because they need time to develop and they need time to bed in. Or you go down the other route and you keep trying to invest and buy the ready-made players and go that way. Having said that, I mean, Koulibaly, I know he needs to get up to speed, but he had a terrible game yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, Sterling, like you said, hasn't, you know, he's done bits, but you know, you'd still expect a better return at the moment. I know he scored a goal, he was offside just, you know, that probably would have been different. But I think bottom line, mate, it comes down to just like you said, competition for places and people getting complacent because the manager hasn't got any other plan B. He has to play Havertz. We've got no other alternative. Really, could play Brozier, but then again, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Fans, if we lost 3-0 yesterday and Brozier started, people would say, well, why are we playing Brozier? It would have been the same argument. So I think we need to go down 2 routes as fans. We need to accept where we are and go with a different system, a different personnel, or we need to accept that we've only got Havertz until something gets sorted in the transfer window, and we have to accept that that's the situation. Because at the moment, both look quite damning at the moment.
Yeah, no, it was bad. And it's certainly the basics, being outrun by another team. I know running stats can sometimes be misleading in the context of certain games, but generally speaking, you know, if you want to win a football match, you've got to work hard. And the fact that we're not talking 1 or 2 kilometres here, 10 kilometres, 5-6 miles outrun over the course of 90 minutes. That's unacceptable, completely unacceptable to have the most basic things on a football pitch, desire and attitude, just to go missing. I mean, I mentioned it at the top of the show, George, but I mean, Tuchel saying afterwards that he doesn't think there's a mentality issue with the squad, with the players and whatnot. But the evidence very much suggests otherwise. This is not just a Tuchel thing. This is a Lampard thing. This is a Mourinho thing. This is a Conte thing. This is a Sarri thing. Like every single one of those managers, all very different, all with different players in their squads, saying the exact same thing. Do you think there's a deep-rooted mentality issue? Because for me, mate, as I said at the top of the show, every time the going gets tough, we just disappear.
Uh, well, looking at the results so far, you have to say yes, but I generally don't think there is. I think it's more to do with being defensively set up, but having no attacking outlet. So we've got no protection for that back line because when we're not scoring goals, I'm still convinced that at holding Leeds, we're one of the best teams out there. So if we go 1-0 up in a game, I think we're quite good at managing it, but it's getting that goal and taking the pressure off the back line. But you're right, mate. I mean, yesterday totally deserved to lose. Didn't want it. Didn't fight. Lost every battle, whether that was in the air or just high press or whatever. Um, and there's I think there's just an element of frustration with Tuchel because he sets his team up. We've had a week to work on this, and then Mendy goes and does something like that you can't envisage, you can't coach, you can't plan for, and that just sets up the momentum shift into Leeds' favour. Then they get a set piece and glancing header at the near post, and we don't deal with it, and all of a sudden you've got a huge uphill task, and yeah, it's managing moments in the game that we're just not very good at the moment. But I don't know. I just think we're lost. We're lost what we are at the moment. I think there's not necessarily a motivation, but a lack of identity at the club.
There's been a lack of identity. There's been a lack of identity for a long time now. I mean, we talked about this even last season. Like, what is Chelsea's identity? You look at. I hate to refer to it, but what we're chasing, what the gold standard is at the moment in Manchester City and Liverpool, is a clear identity. You know exactly how they're going to play, and you know exactly what they're doing. Chelsea got no idea what you're going to get. Sometimes good, sometimes shit, sometimes average. You've got no idea what you're going to get from us, and that again is a big problem. How you can have such a varying range of performances from the same players. I get it, you can't play well every single week, but to collectively have every single player play dog shit in a whole game, that's unacceptable. You can get away with one or two having a poor game, but you cannot get away with all 10 outfield players being utterly shit. Like that can't happen.
But we talked about this last week, and we were saying about there's no such thing really as a bad player. They all play a certain level, and to be a Chelsea player, you have to be a certain standard. So I feel as if though we need to, we've been pressing on, and all the interviews afterwards and all the fan reactions are all about the players and their shit and this and that and the other. There's got to be some level. There's still no criticism of Thomas Tuchel, and I think considering he's been here for a year and a half and not one of those frontline players has improved, that has to go down as an asterisk in his coaching ability.
Yeah,
for some reason. That just doesn't get mentioned enough. And again, people aren't going to be harsh or critical of Tuchel because he came in and did something that only one other manager has managed to do at the football club in such a short space of time. And he's done a lot of great things, but they just haven't got any. And you could argue actually that they've got worse. I think Frank Lampard definitely, whatever we think about Frank Lampard, the goals we scored more goals.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Under Frank Lampard, sorry to cut you off, mate, but under Lampard, we being defensively under Lampard, fucking dreadful.
Poor.
But scoring goals wasn't an issue. We scored a lot of goals under Lampard. So I'm not really sure what's changed between. Obviously, the system's changed. All right, we're playing one extra defender, one less attacker or whatnot. But why are we suddenly struggling to score goals so much? We've kind of traded being defensively solid. We want to be defensively solid, and we're sacrificing goals at the other end. But then how have we gone the complete 360 from going from scoring loads of goals and being defensively shit to being defensively okay, but offering nothing up top? Having said that, we pride ourselves on a solid defence. We've conceded 5 goals in the last 2 games. That's not defensively solid at all. So even at this early stage of the season, what we're kind of priding ourselves on and what we should be good at, and we go on about how we've got such a great pool of defenders, one of the best in the league, if not Europe. And if we add Fofana to that, it gets even better. But at the end of the day, the numbers don't lie. All right, the circumstances may differ. Like you can say, oh, maybe we shouldn't have conceded a goal against Spurs or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, the facts are, for a defensively good side that we're meant to be, it's 5 goals in the last 2 games. That's also a worry as well.
You can explain it because you've got new defenders coming in and they've got to adjust to the new system, and a new centre half partnership's never easy. They've got to understand each other. I mean, Koulibaly's still getting up to you could see yesterday just struggling.
Yeah, he was struggling big time.
distribution poor, people turning him, getting too tight, and the pace of it. He was struggling, but there's no doubt that there's a great player in there. But it will take time. Cucurella the same. I mean, he's been in the Premier League for a year, but being asked to do certain things, playing as an inside, sometimes he changed to an inside in the inside three, played a wing back for a bit, so that he's being asked to do different things. These players have to come in and change. But I mean, Tuchel did brush it up very, very quickly at the start of pre-season and said that Chelsea are in transition. And I don't think people quite believed him. I think people thought they saw the signings come in and think, well, we're in transition going upwards because we think we're going to close the gap. Actually, maybe we're going the other way and thinking that we're going to have to step back to rebuild. And looking at what we've got so far, I mean, again, we're 3 games in, but I really thought yesterday
the same issues though. I know you say it's 3 games in. I totally agree, 3 games in. But the problem for me is that 3 games in, and we've had a pre-season, and yet nothing looks different from last season. Like from season to season, I know let's say 3 games in, but you'd expect like a little bit of progress. You'd expect us to look a bit sharper in attack or whatnot. But it's the same issues that plagued us all last season, and when Tuchel was here from that January when Lampard left. Like the same issues are there, and they don't look like being any closer to being solved. So that's where it's at from that point of view for me, is that like, okay, it's 3 games in, but the fact of the matter is that all the problems we've had continually for the last 18 months to 2 years don't look like being solved whatsoever, and they don't look any closer to being solved either.
No, and I was really concerned that yesterday, going into it, got quite a good away record, and I'd expect Leeds to come out and play, so we've got more space in behind and we'll create more opportunities. And I wasn't too worried about creating chances away from home. I thought maybe Stamford Bridge, the same old. You're playing against a low block, difficult to create chances. But we had chances.
About two or three.
2 or 3 early on in the game.
Yeah, Sterling, Mount had a shot, I think, and
James
then
from distance was a good one.
Yeah, and Cucurella dragged one wide. In a good position, but I mean, other than that, second half, not great.
They look like they could get more, and there was again they kind of analysed it on Match of the Day yesterday and showing that even in like the 88th minute, 3-0 up, they still were winning the challenges, winning the 50-50s, making direct runs into the channels, and we'd look like we'd given up. I mean, it's embarrassing.
And that's what I was on about with the mentality. Like, it's not good enough. But, mate, obviously, I know that there's a lot to cover. By the way, guys, big up everyone in the chat. I will get to some of the things in there. The comments are coming through quickly, but I will get to some of those shortly. But, yeah, guys, please do smash the likes as well. Let's get those likes up. Nowhere near enough likes. So if you're tuning in now, please smash the like button. We'd really appreciate it. And more importantly as well, please do click that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate all that support from you lot. So if you haven't subscribed, please click that subscribe button. It really helps us out. But George, I wanted to address the midfield, mate. It's been an area of concern for a while now, and Chelsea have invested heavily in other areas of the pitch, defence, attacking wise. But it's been a number of years now since we've invested in a midfield player. All right, you could say Kovacic came in, but that was a loan, and then we made it permanent. And I think realistically, we probably only made it permanent because of the transfer ban, because we were fucked for numbers. It would have been interesting to see if Kovacic we would have signed him if we didn't have the transfer ban, but that's obviously another debate. But I mean, midfield is a problem, and now I saw something on Twitter that is very true, and it's like you look at the teams that have won the league recently. Obviously, the City teams, the Liverpool team, even the last Chelsea team. All those teams have got in common a world-class defensive midfield player that is fit for the most of the season. City have had it with Fernandinho and now Rodri. Liverpool had it when they won it with Fabinho. We had it with Nemanja Matic. We had it with Makelele. We had it with Essien. We've never replaced Nemanja Matic. We haven't done it. We have not replaced Nemanja Matic. We have got a glaring hole in this team. There is no world-class holding midfield player. And, yes, I know we're looking to try and get Frankie de Jong. Don't know what's going to happen with that. Casemiro's gone to United. I'm not saying like I would have chosen Casemiro to come to Chelsea, but it's that profile of player, world-class holding midfield player that is missing. And Tuchel's quotes yesterday after the game about the midfield, it's just baffling to me. I hope he doesn't actually mean that, because the Bowley's prepared to back the gaffer here and spend the money. We can't be saying shit like this. He's saying another midfielder. We have Jorginho, Kante, Loftus-Cheek, Gallagher, Kovacic. Kovacic and Kante both injured. Yes, it's not a problem. They all come back. They've not disappeared. No, but what I'm saying is that, like, I hope that Tuchel doesn't think just because we've got numbers in there, it's fine. It's so unbalanced. Look at all those players are completely different profiles. Like we just have not got the balance in there at all. There's no holding midfield player. We completely overrun yesterday. There's no creativity in the middle of the park whatsoever. None of those players are scoring goals or getting assists. The midfield is such a big problem, and yet it doesn't really seem to be a priority. I mean, George, how concerned are you about the midfield now? 'Cause I think being at Elland Road yesterday, it just made it even more obvious. We are desperate for a midfield player.
I've been screaming this on the channel for weeks. I mean, saying that my personal priority is a midfield player, not necessarily a defensive one, because although we don't have necessarily a defensive outlet one, we do have players that are injured at the moment who will come back.
We can't rely on them though, mate.
No, but then you can't really just go and add a player just because players are injured, because they will.
It just goes in a circle though. Like, oh, sign someone, and then the players come back from injury. Oh, we shouldn't have signed that person, but then they get injured again. Oh, why didn't we sign a midfield player? You just go round in circles. We're desperate for it.
I think we're 100% desperate for a creative midfielder. Again, just looking at, I hate to compare it to City, and I hate to compare it to Kevin De Bruyne because he's kind of one of a kind. But you just look at his creativity and his ability to kind of pick passes and play players in. I mean, if Kevin De Bruyne doesn't play yesterday, they don't come back in that football match. And you need someone of that quality who just has that vision to pick the pass and is always looking forward. And we just don't have that killer ball, or that player with an instinct to want to take risks and carry the ball and really take on players and have that moment of just being in sync with a forward. Or we don't have any of that. It's all very reactive rather than proactive. There's no one thinking ahead when they get the ball. We get the ball, we shift it one side, have a look, nothing on, we play back, we go sideways and we play to the other side. It's just nothing. Even on the counter attack, they just look lost for ideas. No one joining the attack, no one in front of the player carrying the ball, just expecting Sterling to kind of dribble past players. And it is winding me up because it's so blatantly obvious that we need it. And I know it's not easy to source because these players are either very expensive or there's a reason why they're not for sale because other teams are doing very well with those players. But I mean, it's been so blatantly obvious for not just this window. It's been quite blatantly obvious for a few years that we haven't had that.
What I don't get is like we clearly haven't replaced the Nemanja Matic. It's as simple as that. I mean, you look at those names there; they're all completely different profiles. We need one or two players in midfield. Who's the backup to Jorginho? He can't play every week. None of those players do what Jorginho do. They're not the same profile. None of those players are the same profile as Kante. None of those players are the same profile as Kovacic. It's such a massive problem. And genuinely, I know people are split on Declan Rice, but if the money's there to spend, which it clearly is, and if Declan Rice is the number one priority for Thomas Tuchel, why are we not just going and say, I don't care about the money at this point. Just go and give West Ham £100 million. If you want Declan Rice and that's your number one target, just go and do it. Go and test the waters. Just put the money on the table and see what happens, because we cannot afford to hang around waiting for De Jong to decide if he wants to stay in Barcelona or not bring in a midfield player, and then just have a shit show in midfield for another whole season, and then have a situation like we did last summer with Christensen and Rudiger. We've got Conte and Jorginho out of contract, and we end up losing two of our two of our best free midfield players for free, and there's no contingency plan in place. Like that, we cannot allow that to happen. So if Declan Rice is a priority, go and offer the money to West Ham and see what happens. We stop just standing still and doing nothing. I mean, De Jong might come or he might not, but we can't just sit here and not act. We need to do it urgently, because the imbalance in midfield is costing us big time.
Well, I'd be absolutely baffled if Chelsea aren't bringing in additions or constantly on the phone or doing something behind the scenes as of now, because we've seen enough already in the 3 games that we've played this season that there is clearly a lack of quality in positions, midfield being one of them, forward being one of them, and obviously adding an extra centre half as well. And we know that, and Tuchel's been very public about those missing, pieces of the jigsaw, if you like. And we've still got time in the window, which, again, as you said, is probably the only positive from yesterday. That I think the more we lose and the more we play shit, the more it's very obvious to the owners and to the manager that we need reinforcements. So hopefully they're going out to get them. And it's not as easy as just saying, let's get Declan Rice. But I completely get your point, because I think that, what's the harm in testing with a bid and seeing what they say? Unless they've been very
particularly
tactical.
now with their start as well, 3 games lost in a row, no goals scored. He might think, oh, actually, maybe I'll get out of it. I'm not saying we should go and it'll definitely come, but at least try.
Yeah, well, that's what, and maybe they are trying. Maybe not all things get out to the public. Maybe West Ham have basically said don't bother because we're not taking offers. And then what is the point? I don't know. I mean, I don't know how it works, but what I do know is that Chelsea need to get reinforcements in and fast. And we're essentially missing 3 players at the moment that we need, and each part of the pitch. And we have to tick at least 2 of those by the end of the transfer window. Otherwise, I think we are in a real challenge to finish top 4 this season. I really do believe that.
Mate, the biggest problem that I've got as well, mate, is that even if we bring these players in, all right, say we bring in Aubameyang, say we bring in Fofana, say it's just Aubameyang and Fofana, and maybe one other if we can get something done. My biggest concern is that do new signings actually are they going to just suddenly make everything better? I don't think they are. I think the problems are more deep-rooted. Yes, we need more players in through the door, and we need more quality, which they will add, and they'll add options and competition and hopefully raise other players' levels. But at the same time, I'm not convinced that new signings coming in is going to drastically alter our fortunes. I'm really not. Say Aubameyang plays yesterday. He'd have a very frustrating time at Chelsea if we just don't create any chances like we've been doing this season. Like he plays yesterday. The result's is not that much different. Say Fofana plays, maybe we're a little bit more defensively solid, but I'm just concerned that new signings coming in, as much as we need them and we have to get them, I don't actually know if it's going to make much difference to start with. I think the problems are more deep-rooted than just bringing a couple of players in.
Well, there's no guarantee, obviously, but and one doesn't work without the other. If you don't have a creative midfielder creating the chances, we could bring in Dion, for example, not bringing a forward. But then, do you still hang your hat on those forwards finishing the chances?
Oh, mate, we have to bring a forward. We have to bring a forward. And we cannot go in with what we've got.
But then, like you said, you bring in Aubameyang. He's not going to solve the problems if he doesn't get anyone playing him in. He's just going to be like Lukaku, just hanging up there, waiting for balls to come in, and nothing gets delivered. So I think signings we need them. I think regardless of whether they work or
we
not,
definitely
there's no
need
other
them.
Alternative. But like you said, mate, there's just complacency because we've had the same kind of squad for quite a while. Jorginho, Kovacic, Kante, they've all not been really tested with any new signings coming in for a number of years. And therefore, I don't know. Does Levels job? I'm not gonna start calling them, saying they're not putting their effort. But I think when you're playing every week, you can get a little bit complacent and brush losses under the carpet a bit easier than if you look over your shoulder and think, well, if I don't play well today, I'm not getting a start next week. Which none of those players are really under threat. I mean, think of how Paul Havertz plays, and he knows that he'll be on the starting 11 sheet next week. I mean, you don't really get that at any of the other top sides, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, but then maybe we've seen this cycle before, mate. Like, I hate to say it, but Chelsea have a tendency that after a certain while and the bounce has gone, the players start to get a bit bored, and Tuchel starts to run out of ideas, and managers could be going.
It's got a little bit of a Conte feel to it. Like this could be like almost a bit of a watershed moment. This result could either be a catalyst for us to change things up and have a really good season or a promising season, or it could just be a catalyst for us like setting into a decline. This could very much be like we lost 3-0 to Arsenal. We switched things up and we were phenomenal. Like the next 2-3 games are so important for at this early stage of how the season's actually going to go. And we'll get onto it later in the week. But Leicester on Saturday, it's must win. It's must win. We cannot afford to not win that game on Saturday. Even fourth game of the season, we cannot afford to not win. We have to win that game. Like this could be a watershed moment for us. I'm just going to get to a couple of things into the chat before we get into the player ratings. Where are we? What's this one here? What about Núñez? Oh, Núñez has just signed for Wolves, so he's not going to. Matthias Núñez has just signed for Wolves, so he's not going to leave. We have lost Werner and Lukaku and not replaced either. No, we haven't. What about Pedro Neto? Like, this is someone that I'm a massive fan of. Pedro Neto at Wolves, 22 years of age. Arsenal very interested in him. Strong links. They're trying to negotiate with him. Potentially a deal is going to be difficult. Wolves want a lot of money, but this is someone, Pedro Neto, £50 million, Premier League proven. a top player. Like, why are we not all over that? I mean, sure, Pedro Neto's miles clear of Anthony Gordon. Like, we cannot allow Arsenal to go and get Pedro Neto for 50 million, and whilst we try and get Anthony Gordon for 50 mil. Pedro Neto for me is miles better, and it's something that we should be all over and looking at. We really have to. What else we got here? Oh, Neto, yeah. Neto probably end up playing at left wing back. Yeah, that is true. But yeah, guys, before we get into the player ratings, again, please do keep smashing those likes. Let's get those likes up. Really appreciate it. And please do subscribe to the channel as well. We'd really appreciate all the support. So if you're not subscribed, please do subscribe to the channel now, people. Right, let's get into the player ratings. And there's going to be some very low numbers in this one because it was quite frankly an absolute shit show. So, George, let's kick it off with Edouard Mendy. I'll let you go first, mate.
God,
it was terrible. I mean, the mistake was the glaringly obvious one, but even then, distribution was poor. He looked shaky on the ball. Just a really bad day at the office for him.
Yeah, mate. I've questioned him technically. I still believe Kepa's
he's not good on the ball
overall. No, not good on the ball. I mean, he does make some outstanding saves, and every goalkeeper makes a mistake. Petr Cech had a purple patch where he made a lot of mistakes as well. But it happens. He's got to let it go. But it's the recovery that I watch, and it's almost like he couldn't handle the crowd egging him on, trying to distract him. And like you said, his distribution got worse, and he just looked a mess, mate. And it's a bad day at the office for him. Probably one of his worst so far in his career in a Chelsea shirt. So for me, he can't get higher than a 3.
Yeah, mate, really I would agree.
I mean, 3-0. 3-0 and a shitty mistake, like an awful, like
mate,
honestly, I can't.
That's a 2, mate. I think it's a 2 for me, and it is a problem. I mean, George, talks of Kepa going to Napoli still ringing on. That's not happened yet, but I'm not sure we can be in a position where we can let Kepa go whilst Mendy's playing so badly. I mean, do you think? I'm not saying Tuchel's going to change the goalkeeper for the next game against Leicester, but do you think Mendy's if he carries on with this patchy form? Do you think there's a chance it could be dropped?
I don't see why not, but then sometimes I think it's harsh to then drop a player after one mistake. I think you've got to allow.
This is a sustained run of form, really stretching to the back end of last season through pre-season. Like, I don't know. Like,
I just look at him and I just obviously he was at. Before, I think it was up until the Brentford game last season away, he was pretty much unstoppable. He couldn't get a goal past him. So he's got the ability, but there's something about me that just doesn't, I can't see us like winning a title with Mendy being a title winning goalkeeper. I just can't see it. He doesn't have that same class to me that the other players have done that we've had in goal before. And a goalkeeper is a very important part of a kind of, if you want to close the gap or title challenging team, very important part. You only have to look back at some of the big ones. I don't think he'll be dropped. But for me, he's probably been one of the worst out of the ones. If you look at Courtois, Cech, Kudicini, I still don't think he's better than those guys. I don't.
No, he's not. And I agree with this as well. He's one of the worst. His distribution's shocking. It's really
awful,
bad. It's really bad. It is really bad. Let's move on to the back 3 then. I feel sorry for Thiago Silva because, like, on days like that when everything's going to shit, he still played okay. But let's start with Reece James at right centre back. I don't want to see this anymore. Not because he can't do it, but because it just limits us so much. He has to play right wing back. It's as simple as that. But as soon as he went to right wing back in the second half, things did look a bit better. He was a constant threat down that right hand side. Trying to get balls in the box, trying to make things happen. But in right centre-back, he's so limited in how much he can influence the game going forward. And it's a big problem. And with the wing-backs being so important, like, for our attacking prowess, like when he plays back there, it makes it 10 times harder for us. I don't think he was bad yesterday, but when you've lost 3-0 and you've basically created fuck all and everyone's been shit, I think for me, mate, probably a 4.5, a 4 or 4.5 for James. I mean, I totally agree. See it, mate. I think end of the experiment. That's what for me, mate. Just so we don't have to see Reece James at right centre back anymore. Just spend the money on Fofana. Just do it.
Yeah, I think when he did change it to Chilwell coming on and James moving to wing back, I think that's what he's going to do going forward. I get the fact that you can't if you're going to play Loftus-Cheek, you can't play Loftus-Cheek where James was playing, because you need James
No.
is a defender, so he needs he does need a defender playing in that inside role. You can't have Loftus-Cheek playing there because give away fouls and all the rest, not good in the air or whatever. But no, I don't want to see it, mate. It's like playing Trent at centre back. It would just be it's just why he's such a good outlet going forward. He's got a great delivery, creates chances, scores goals, is imperative to the forward, creating chances going forward. So why we're playing him in that, I don't know. So I don't want to see it again. And that his score will reflect a tactical decision from Tuchel, not necessarily his performance. So no more than 4.5 for me.
Let's save Thiago Silva for last. Let's go to Koulibaly. Obviously, still new. He played well against Everton to start with. Obviously, the pace of the league catching him out a little bit in terms of having to go off with cramp and whatnot. Was great, good against Spurs. Looked a bit shaky on the ball, kind of opening few minutes, etc. But then really settled into it and had a great game, mate. Yesterday from the off, he was just all over the place. He was getting caught out. I don't think he's been used to playing anything like that against Serie A. Someone that like teams that just press like that, like Leeds do. You just don't get it in other leagues. And yeah, he was in trouble, mate. He really was. And as soon as he did that foul in the opening 10 minutes, was on a booking for the rest of the game. He was walking a tightrope. You can't be as committed as you want to be as a defender because you're worried about getting sent off. He really struggled yesterday. He was caught out a number of times. Every time, like his range of passing, which is normally pretty decent, every time he was trying that switch of play, more often than not, it didn't come off. And then the icing on top of the shit cake was the second booking and the red card, and he's out for Leicester. So, I mean, yeah, he'll have a lot better days for sure, and he'll get more and more used to the league. And this will be a big wake up call for him about how different the Premier League is. But yeah, a really poor day at the office for him, mate. Before I come on to your thoughts, mate, for me, it's probably a 2. I thought it was dreadful.
Yeah, I mean, for people who say he's an upgrade, I've never said that on Rudiger. I said he's got the potential, but for everything that he did poorly yesterday, Rudiger just, that's why Rudiger's better than him. Distribution, control with the ball, ideas. But I'm not going to blame him because people saying, "Oh, he's shit. He looks, he's not
He's
well."
not shit.
It's rubbish. It's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Like you said, welcome to the Premier League. I mean, it's the hardest league in the world, and he is he would never have been pressed in a game like that in his life. He would have been in an aggressive battle like that. The pace of it, you need to be on it. Your first touch needs to be immaculate. You need to know where you're going to play the ball like within seconds, and he just got caught out. It's one of those where you say in the dressing room, learn from it. I mean, this is the level, and you'll learn from it. And yeah, he got caught out. Red card just topped off a very poor day for him, but he's a world class player. He just needs time to get used to the pace of it.
No, I do.
You did say that.
No, I have said that, and I think in time that'll be proven. It's easy now to say, when he's got a red card and whatnot, he didn't play well. So I think over the course of this season and over the course of his time at Chelsea, it will prove to be an upgrade on Rudiger. But at the moment, it's not that. In this one game in isolation, that's not looking like a great comment. But George, for you, worse than Mendy, 2.5 on a par or a 2?
He did get sent off, so you probably got to give him a lower one, I guess.
Yeah, you got to give him a lower one. Yeah, let's give him a 2. George, moving on to Thiago Silva. Again, 38 years of age. I don't think he was bad, but I do think he's a bit physically. He's quite limited now, and that's a little bit of a problem. I think in a back 4, it's a problem. In a 3, it's not so bad. But I mean, I don't think he was. Yes, we let in 3 goals, and it was a terrible day for everyone. But out of the defenders, I thought he was the best. I mean, there's not an awful lot he could do about a lot of the goals. And I mean, for me, I'd probably say it 5. I think he was average. He wasn't terrible, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because when you're trying to assess individuals in a unit like a defence, if one domino falls, the rest of them do. Because Koulibaly just constantly putting us in under pressure by giving away loose balls, the midfield playing poorly. It just creates more pressure for us. But he was the best, probably out of the worst bunch. Again, not a single error in terms of contributing to the goal itself, but it's hard for him. He's adjusting. He's having to basically teach Koulibaly the league, and he's got Loftus-Cheek on another side. It's probably not as solid as maybe Reece James playing there with Christensen or Rudiger in behind with him. Cucurella the same, new system. So it's essentially the back line has changed considerably. So you have to allow that for errors to be made. But for me, yeah, 4 or 5. I mean, it wasn't his greatest. And I agree, mate. Physically, I think he got a bit done. It got roughed up by Leeds yesterday.
Yeah, no, it was a problem. Let's move on to Loftus-Cheek then at right wing back. Phenomenal against Spurs last weekend, but I think, George, the Premier League and the fact that that's not his position, he's just kind of filling in there because he can do it. He can do a job. I think he was I think he was a little bit exposed today. Some good moments defensively and some good moments going forward. But again, like a lot of players, mate, so frustrating. There's a phenomenal opportunity in that first half to just hit that ball first time or take one touch and shoot, and it could be a goal. Takes too many touches, almost like he's afraid to shoot, and the opportunity's just gone. I mean, I just wish it had been Reece James there, because that's either forcing the keeper to make a good save or it's a goal. So I don't know. Ruben. I don't think he was. I don't think he was like awful. I think he was one of the better players on the day. Went into midfield in the second half, looked a bit better. He's a phenomenal athlete. He's good on the ball. But yeah, I think yesterday he was caught out a few times defensively, and when going forward, he has to offer a bit more. But again, as I was saying earlier, this is not his position. Loftus-Cheek's not a right wing back. Like, no. I'm almost thinking, what are we expecting? Yes, for the odd game here and there, he can do a job. But if you're asking him to play there most weeks, when we play better sides, he will get exposed defensively. I don't know what we're expecting.
It's so frustrating because Loftus-Cheek has got so many qualities that are totally unique to Loftus-Cheek. Like his build, for one, his athleticism is literally, it's one of the best in the Premier League. Like he could shove anyone off the ball. His fitness is a joke. He's actually very intelligent footballer off the ball as well. Like but it's just not his. I mean, you could name any Premier League fullback in that position is probably more suited to that, even an average one, than Loftus-Cheek. It's just like you see it on a team sheet and you just know it just doesn't fit. It's like trying to fit, a square peg in a round. It's just not going to work. And Tuchel actually came out and said he was one of the better ones who tried. I think he singled out 2 players who were trying their hardest, and he was one of them. But it just doesn't work, does it? I mean, it's harsh because it did work against Spurs very well.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think with players
4?
who get 4 maybe. I don't think he was. I don't think he was very good. I mean, it's harsh.
No.
But we lost 3-0 away to a team that just survived last year. It's just not good enough, is it?
Yeah, mate. Just a stat that I've quickly seen is that Chelsea have now conceded more goals in the opening 3 Premier League games this season, 5, than we did from our opening 12 last season, which was 4.
Oh,
so after 12 games last season, we'd let 4 in. We've already let 5 in after 3. So despite the fact we're spending a lot of money on defenders and stuff, we seem to have at the moment got slightly worse. So hopefully we can...
Takes time.
Take time. George Cucurella getting a second consecutive start. I think well deserved after the performance against Tottenham for sure. He started well, but sort of faded and got worse as the game went on. We saw him drop into that left centre-back role when Chilwell came on. As you touched on him, and that could be something we maybe see a bit more of going forward. Cucurella playing left side of the 3 with Chilwell at left wing-back potentially. But yeah, I felt Cucurella, he started brightly, but again, like a lot of players, struggled to influence the game.
Yeah. I think, like I said earlier, that if one domino falls, the rest of them, follow. And I'm not singling them out. I don't think he did anything particularly wrong yesterday, but it was just, I think with anything, when you change something so drastically, particularly with personnel, you're always going to have that dip before you go up. So I think a lot of people are very negative about the defence and conceding goals, but let's not forget that we're changing a lot of people in different positions, systems. Yes, we're still playing a 5, but over 50% of those players have changed. So not to mention that some of them are actually brand new in Cucurella and possibly Fofana coming in. So we've got to expect the dip before we get it right. For me, I think it was probably on par with Loftus-Cheek, but
maybe a 3.5.
Didn't get as exposed because I think Harrison did a job on Loftus-Cheek, whereas I don't think much was coming down that side from Cucurella's point of view. So he did manage it a little bit better. 4.5, I'd probably say is about fair.
I might go 3.5.
That's fair.
I think that's fair. Let's move into midfield then. We touched on him earlier. Conor Gallagher, delighted to see him get his first start for the club. But yeah, I think in that pivot position, that's not best for him. He's a number 8. We saw him at Crystal Palace last season. He contributes goals and assists, and he was exposed in the midfield in that first half, particularly. You know, he gave away the ball a few times. He got overrun big time in the midfield, and he did struggle in that first half for sure. I think when we switched to a 3 or the 4-2-2, whatever you want to refer to it as, he looks a bit better for sure. I think he looks better with a couple of extra players around him in midfield. But yeah, it was a difficult day for him. But there will be more opportunities and brighter days ahead, I'm sure, for Conor Gallagher in a Chelsea shirt. But yeah, today I think the occasion maybe got the better of him. Perhaps he was overrunning, as I said, in the middle of the park, gave the ball away a little bit, struggled to influence the game. And a lot of the things that Conor Gallagher's good at, we just didn't see it. And it was a tough day at the office for him. But for me, I'd probably give him a 3.
Yeah, I was gonna say 3 exactly. I think we can't put him in a blanket just because he's a young player. I mean, he's got to be fairly assessed, and it was poor yesterday. There's no getting away from it. People of his age and his ability scream for opportunities in a big side, and he just wasn't up to it. So I think a 3 is fair.
Moving on to Jorginho, equally as poor for me. Maybe I don't know if worse or not. That's debatable, but George, the game just passed him by. It was so easy for Leeds players to just get round him and overrun him in midfield. I mean, we were so badly overrun in midfield yesterday. But I mean, Jorginho's obviously having to play a lot of football at the moment. Terrible for him yesterday as well. Just didn't offer anything.
Well, I think when Gallagher's playing alongside him, I think it does make Jorginho's job a lot harder because you've got someone that's not as reliable at keeping the ball as Kante makes your job a lot easier if you've got someone like that. So yeah, I appreciate that. I think Gallagher let him down a little bit because you're having to play with a new partner who's perhaps he wasn't up to speed, and so I think it made Jorginho's situation a little bit worse. But you'd expect him to take the game by the horns and really go for it and show Gallagher how to control a game, and he didn't do that. So. Yeah, I think 4, maybe 3.5. It just kind of passed him by.
3.5, probably a smidgen better than Gallagher, but we're kind of scraping the barrel there, really.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on to the front 3. This is going to be rather depressing, I think. Not that the rest of the players haven't been, but George, Mason Mount. I don't want to say it's a problem, but for me, his form's a little bit concerning. Yes, he played well against Tottenham, but at the end of the day, this front 3 has contributed 1 assist in the first 3 games, and Sterling's assist for Reece James against Spurs was a 10-yard pass. All right, you still have to do it, but let's not beat around the bush. It wasn't some sort of creative masterpiece. Mason Mount, he's not a right winger. We've said it time and time again. He's playing there because of the system. He's not going to play in a pivot, so he has to play there. But mate, are you concerned by his levels of performance dropping? I'm not lumping him in with Havertz just yet, but it's are you a bit alarmed about Mount's form? Because I thought yesterday just offered nothing, absolutely nothing. I know right wing's not his position, so we can't expect worldy performances from there. I mean, Mount's basically playing where Salah plays, and Mount's nothing like Salah in terms of profile of player. So I just don't really know what to do here because Mount's best as an 8 or playing behind the front 2 or, dropping as a third man in midfield. He's so wasted in right wing. Just everything he's good at, he's just not able to do there.
Yeah. I'm not concerned about his form because I think, we've seen how good he can be. So, and he's always going to play for Chelsea because of the situation we're in. Whether that's right or wrong, I still believe he's at least gives a shit when he's on there and he tries his hardest, and you can see that when he plays. He might not have great days in the office like everyone, but I'd still, out of everyone, I'd still want him on the team sheet in any Chelsea game when we're going into a Premier League match. That's just my opinion. Doesn't mean that he warrants a start, but for me, I think he's a creative outlet.
It needs to be more consistent, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, but when you're getting, but when you're getting thrown around, like you say, to different positions, you're asked to be doing something different each week. It can be a bit, it makes it complicated for players that just want to play. I mean, if you know your position and you know what you do week in, week out, like a Kante, it makes football so much easier. Whereas Mounts plays on the left, plays in the middle, plays on the right, plays a pivot, plays as an 8. Every time asked to do something different, and it just, it's just complicated going on the pitch, being like, right, today I've got to do this, next week I've got to do that. Just play him in a position consistently and see what happens. That's what I'd say.
How concerning is it to you, mate, that this seemingly at the moment, all right, Aubameyang might come in and that might change, but realistically, this is the front 3 that's probably going to play the majority of football this season, and it's fucking awful.
Well, it's awful. It's awful by numbers. Yeah,
it's awful. Well, no,
by
but
numbers.
mate, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. These guys are responsible for either creating chances or putting the ball in the in the net. They're not doing any of that. 3 football matches. These front 3 have played the vast majority of all the minutes in the 3 games. No goals from this front 3 in the Premier League in 3 games. None. I mean, got 1 assist from them. It doesn't matter how you dress that up. 1 assist from the front 3 in 3 games and 0 goals. That's terrible.
But all I'd say is just look at the image you've got on the screen now and look what's behind them offering them.
Yeah, but no, I get that.
There's literally fuck all. It's Jorginho who can't move.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you expecting? We haven't got a De Bruyne. We haven't got a Ward-Prowse. We haven't got a Casemiro. We haven't got someone who's unlocking the door for them. They're being asked to basically take on a whole low block of 8, 4 midfielders, 4 defenders to try and score a goal.
But what I'm saying is, like, in regards to Mount, it's not all about stats, but the eye test as well. You know, he's like supposed to be that sort of link between midfield and attack, and it's not. I love Mason Mount, but like there needs to be more consistency in the performances, because at the moment, like, all right, his numbers last season were good. Yes, they were, but I think they probably masked over a number of cracks in his game in terms of like last season. I felt actually in games, despite what his numbers say, overall performance-wise, he was less influential on the pitch. I know it, like, for me, yes, okay, he got a number of assists, but he was I know a corner's still an assist, but we're talking about open play assists. We need more of that. I think we just need more consistency from Mount. I'm not lumping in with Havertz, I'm not saying he's shit, but like, you know, what he's in the team to do, he's not really doing it at the moment. It's not just him, it is the others as well. But I mean, it is a bit of a concern for me, I have to say. But Jordan, in terms of rating for Mount and stuff, I thought it was non-existent on that right-hand side. It was nothing. I mean, 3, maybe 3, 2.5. That was just nothing.
No,
mate, he was terrible.
I'm not backing Mount here, but I think he's better than. I think he's still like a 4. I wouldn't say he's worse than.
Mate, all right, we'll come 3.5 as a compromise.
Well, if that's the case, then I can't wait to get to fucking Havertz. Tell you what, do we have minus on here or not?
Fucking minus 29, like his fucking shirt number. Mate, I don't even know how to start with this guy. Like,
yeah,
we paid £70 million for him, maybe more with whatever add-ons they are. I am yet to. We're 3rd season in, and we're still discussing what is he. How can that be possible that 3 years into your Chelsea career, start of your 3rd season, and we are still trying to work out what Kai Havertz is? That is a massive problem already. Before we even get to what he does on the pitch, the fact that we don't even know what he should be doing on the pitch or where he's best on the pitch is a big problem. I mean, yesterday was just terrible. How on earth did he play 90 minutes? It was embarrassing. The guy's finishing's terrible. His link-up play's terrible. His hold-up play's terrible. He offers absolutely nothing. And at the moment, mate, I got cooked for saying that he was basically like hasn't really, apart from the Champions League final goal, not really contributed much more than Werner. I got battered when I said that. These performances he's putting in, week out at the moment are making my claim more credible. Honestly, mate, he's not been much better than Timo Werner. I don't think that's an exaggeration. I mean, George, how big of a problem is it for you, mate, that at the start of the 3rd year of Kai Havertz being at Chelsea, we don't even know what he is, or we're still debating where his best position is?
I think Chelsea's just in a really difficult situation because when Lampard came in, he obviously got backed very heavily in that second window, and we decided we're going to invest heavily on these kind of up and coming stars that are going to be the future and lay out the platform for Chelsea with 5-6 years down the line, and we'll tie them down to long contracts, and we're in transition, and we'll allow them time. But Chelsea have never used that model. Chelsea have always brought in instant success players, and Werner and Havertz were not. Yes, they did well in the Bundesliga, but they were not instant success players. They needed time. I mean, he's still very young, but we're just getting fed up now because there's no faith in the guy to produce anything in a match, and
I
that is
wouldn't trust
seriously
him to do
concerning.
anything.
And I feel so sorry for people like Brozier.
Mate, Brozier
Abraham,
has
who
to
sit
start
on the
next
bench.
week.
Yeah, but I mean, what are you, as a player, what are you thinking when you watch that and you're the manager of that club gives him 90 minutes after that performance and you're Brozier and you're
Well,
getting
Brozier
no
is
game
injured.
time?
Well, Brozier is injured at the
All right,
moment, but
all
yeah.
right, all right. But, even Tammy Abraham before, I mean, just got no game time under Thomas Tuchel because he played Havertz, Werner. And you look at those performances and you think, how on earth? Like, what do I need to do to get into the team if they're playing that shit and they play every week? It's embarrassing. And Chelsea have got the worst. They have got now the worst front line in the top six. I mean,
But I think
no secret.
it's true, but I think another issue as well, mate, is that Tuchel's so stubborn, despite all his qualities and how good
Do you
a
think it's
manager
because
he
he's
is.
German and he's got some
But
German?
I don't know what it is, mate, but he's so stubborn. Like, this three will start again against Leicester. Like, we sit here and we slate it, and rightly so, but we know that this three is going to start again on Saturday.
Realistic, what other options he got? Pulisic's here
Well,
at 1-2.
I know, but Brozier, mate, if Brozier's
going.
fit, he has to start on Saturday. But we all know that he's not going to start.
That's the $1 million question.
Even if we get a Aubameyang signed by Wednesday or whatever, or Thursday, if we get Aubameyang signed in time to play against Leicester,
probably.
he's still not going to. We know he's not going to start. Like, this is the I just don't know, mate. And then the other options, as you say, Hudson-Odoi, Ziyech, Pulisic, they all don't want to be here. Yeah. Like, I know we can't not play them, but they don't want to be here. So I mean, I really don't know, but it's a problem. One. I mean, I'm sick of talking about Kai Havertz because this is a third year now, and it's just not good enough. It's just not good enough, and needs to fix up big time. Fucking dreadful. Sterling. I don't want to lump Sterling in with Havertz, etc. I'm not, but Sterling shouldn't be immune from criticism. I think at Manchester, look, there's no denying his goal scoring record, phenomenal. What he's done in the game in the Premier League, but I think we all know that his finishing is not great. But I think the fact that Manchester City created so many chances kind of masked over the fact that he missed chances. Because at City, he missed one or two chances. They're going to create at least 3, 4, or 5 chances, and he'll score one of them. But the problem is at Chelsea, we're creating maybe 1 or 2 chances, and if you miss those chances, you aren't getting another chance to do it. So it makes it so much more obvious. I mean, it's a problem. And look, Sterling, we know, is a top player, and he will make this attack better. But you're only as good as what's around you and what you're playing with, and what's around him and what he's playing with at the moment. It's not good enough. So Sterling's not immune from criticism, but we've got to throw the criticism at the guys that have been here for 2, 3 seasons now and aren't delivering. So yes, it's a bit worrying that Sterling is struggling to influence the game, but he's been playing through the middle most of the time. That's not what he does.
But I don't know what Chelsea fans expect. He was. We stand by it. He was a great signing for Chelsea.
He's a right winger.
Yeah, but for the profile and for the fact that of his stats, he's a great signing for Chelsea. It ticks all the boxes. But he was never going to be the same player that he was at Manchester City for the exact same reason that we said even before he signed. City, like you say, create multiple opportunities in the game, and he's not going to get those at Chelsea. He's not going to be the same player. He's not going to score loads and loads of goals, but he is a great signing because he's better than what we've got, 100%. And he still is. Sure. I mean, you even see that yesterday, like just
where he takes players on and
takes players. He offers something different. But for people who's going to say he's going to not only match what he did at City but elevate, they're living in a dreamland because he's just not going to do that at Chelsea until we improve what's around him.
We don't have the chance creation to do it.
But he still was at least offside goal. Create a chance. He is. You can't give him too much compared to the other two who have had plenty of time. I think he needs more. So I wouldn't give him I'd say probably a 4.5, 5. I don't think. Maybe that's too high. I don't know.
I think I'll give him let's give him a 4.5. He was the best by miles there, but it is a concern. I mean, a few things in the chat saying that Havertz is a 10, can play behind the striker. I mean, Havertz has been playing in a front 2 really. Like the first couple of games, Havertz and Sterling have kind of started as a 2. And then people are saying that, we're in the wrong system and whatnot. No connection / transition. But I think even we switched to a 4 yesterday and we were still shit in the second half. It's not as simple. If it was as simple as switch to a back 4, we'd be playing a back 4. The fact of the matter is we have not got the players to play a back 4. We do not have a world-class holding midfield player, which you need to play a back 4. And it's as simple as that. At the moment, the signings we're making as well, particularly defensively, are very much signings to play the 3 at the back system. So I think ultimately, yes, we do want to move to a 4. But right now, the 3 is what it's going to be for the majority of the season. Kai's a midfielder, not a left wing. I mean, at Leverkusen, I think Havertz was playing wide. He played through the middle. He played as a 10. He kind of did everything. And now at Chelsea, he's doing absolutely nothing. So I don't really know what's happened there. I mean, it's a bit easy. It's a bit revisionist now to say after the moment. But, I think I actually said on there when we
wanted Jesus. We
kind of I didn't not want Sterling, but Jesus would have been more useful to us than Sterling, I feel. I mean, would you agree with that, George? Do you think Jesus would have been better to have?
Well, I think you said you wanted. I think you said Jesus would have been a better suit, and I said I'd rather have both, ideally. Yeah. But yeah, obviously we both wanted Jesus. We were.
This would have been the perfect profile, isn't it? Someone that can play down the middle, but can also play wide and actually knows how to score goals.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. I've got no criticism of signing Raheem Sterling, and I think Sterling is still a good signing for the football club. It's just what's he got to work around him compared to what he had at City with like Mahrez, Gundogan, Kevin De Bruyne? Like it's chalk and cheese what he's got now.
Yeah.
So as much as he's a good footballer, what's around him is useless at the moment. So you can't expect him to do it on his own. We've got the same problems. We hung our hat on Lukaku for a season thinking he's going to come in, score loads of goals, but what was around him and didn't provide the service. And it's the same here. We're going to have the same problem if we don't address it.
Yeah, we are. Mate, as Bright Guy says here, Pedro Neto is potential for him to be available. We've got to be, I said it earlier in the show, we've got to be all over this. Just £50 million on the table. Neto is top draw.
I'll tell you another one that I like. I watched yesterday that I've been shouting out a long time, and I don't know why no one goes from his Saint Maximin. Watch Saint Maximin play football.
Do you know what it is though?
He's so good.
But again, he's so inconsistent. He'll play like he did yesterday, and he'll be shit for like 3 or 4 games. Like he gets you on the edge of the seat. But yeah, I don't really know. Yeah. Pedro Neto is a top player. I think we should be looking at him. If we're prepared to spend 50 million on Anthony Gordon, why not just use that 50 million and do it for Pedro Neto instead?
Yeah, true.
I think that's definitely a thing, guys. Before we round out, I just want to quickly say one thing. I know it's only 3 games, but so far, big chances created stats for the season so far. Man City 11 chances, Palace 9, Brentford 7, Liverpool 6 from 2 games, Spurs, Arsenal, Newcastle and Brighton 6, Chelsea 3 big chances created so far in the Premier League this season. So that averages out at 1 a match, which basically highlights what we've been saying, that we just aren't good enough in the final third. Toothless FC, mate. There's nothing at all. And that's a big problem. By the way, guys, 80 of us in here at the moment. So please keep smashing those likes and please continue to subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't done so already. So please keep smashing the likes. Get those likes up, guys. Nowhere near enough likes. And please do subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't done so already. But yeah, that kind of rounds out the player ratings there. A poor day at the office in Elland Road yesterday. Just very quickly, we're not going to go into it in detail right now. But George, apparently reports coming out of Spain, I don't know how accurate they are, saying that it's pretty close now, an agreement for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang to come to Chelsea in a deal worth around £22 million, and it could be closed in the next few hours. Those are reports coming out of Spain. Chelsea and Aubameyang very advanced, 18.6 million plus 4.2 million in add-on. So that's one to keep an eye out for. That could accelerate today or maybe tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, also this is. I just want to bring this on the screen. I don't want to keep shitting on our attackers, but I just want to bring this one thing up.
Stats man.
No, stats aren't everything, because stats can be very misleading. The eye test is just as important these days, and I think it's important to remember that. But having said that, Raheem Sterling in his first 3 games for Chelsea, no goals, no shots on targets, 1 assist, 29% of his duels won, 29% of his dribbles completed, and he's lost possession 48 times. Now, that doesn't paint the full picture, because I think in certain games, he's been attacking and he's been promising and he's looked good. But at the end of the day, those stats aren't really great. That, this is our big attacking signing, 50 odd million pounds. And with 3 games in, he's not even had a shot on target.
But those stats aren't the same stats if he plays for Manchester City. That's just a fact.
No, well, no, they're not.
If Haaland plays for Chelsea, he's not got 3 goals
Oh,
this season so far.
Mate, if Haaland plays for Chelsea, mate, man's having about 5 touches a game.
And that's so it's not the player, it's the system.
No, but do you think
it's the way Chelsea play?
But that's a problem, isn't it, mate? How mad is it that someone of Raheem Sterling's quality in 3 games hasn't even had a shot on target?
Yeah, that's obviously not great at all, is it? I just don't understand it. I think I know I'm not a professional footballer by any means, but I just don't understand how you can walk on a football pitch and you're an attacker and you don't have a shot on target in 3 games. It's beggars belief. Like I just don't get it. I know obviously if you play for sides who perhaps have more of the ball, or your Man City, you're going to get more chances. I get that, but then there's got to be kind of a level where you reach even. I mean, we're Chelsea Football Club. We're not mugs. We should be still creating chances and scoring goals. I mean, we're not struggling at relegation form, and it's just.
I mean,
I don't know. This comment sums it. I think we've got to be honest. We are quite a boring football club to watch. I mean, no one goes to Stamford Bridge and thinks, "Wow, we're lighting up the world," are we?
We're so predictable. I think that's the problem. We're so easy to play against. Like, mate, Leeds basically yesterday just gave the league the blueprint of how to beat us. Like, just press us. Like, mate, we got pressed big time yesterday.
I think it's Chelsea.
We couldn't handle it.
Like we said, if we're 1-0 up or 2-0 up, Chelsea are one of the best at operating in terms of keeping teams out. We showed that even in the Champions. In a one-off game, we can do that. We did that basically in the 2 cup finals that we lost last year. We were the better team. But when we're asked to create things and take on teams, it's so systematic. It's like playing a computer game. It's so like everyone's in the same positions. There's no creativity. And it's boring on the eye, and it's frustrating to watch because you can just see the low block and you just know that Chelsea cannot break it down, and that is the biggest problem.
That is the biggest problem, man. That seems like a good point to round out on, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Obviously not a bit depressing today after yesterday's shit show, but whatever happens, we're always here bringing you the content, bringing you the honest discussions, our thoughts and feelings. So really appreciate everyone tuning in today. Really appreciate everyone getting involved in the chat as well. So try and get through as much of it and notice as much of it as possible. So thanks for your comments as always, guys. Guys, on your way out, make sure you smash the likes. Keep smashing those likes on your way out, and please do subscribe to the channel on your way out if you haven't done so already. George, thanks for your time as always, mate. Greatly appreciated. Guys, I'll be back tomorrow with a transfer stream with Mr. Ben Jacobs again joining the show. So make sure you tune in for that one around 1 p.m. tomorrow. So Ben Jacobs transfer special tomorrow. Hopefully some updates on Aubameyang, Fofana, and anyone else we can hopefully get in. But until then, guys, take care, keep the faith, and up the Chelsea.